Welcome back to the Sixth Gear Garage. Let's build a custom exhaust. First, I cleaned all the pieces because they're coated with oil at the factory so they won't rust. So in the last episode of this truck, I finally got it running, and right now it only has an open shorty header, and it was pretty loud. So over here, I have all the pieces that I should need to make a full exhaust. I've got a universal muffler, a full 2-inch exhaust kit. We got 2 straight pieces, 2 180s, 2 45s, and 2 90s. And I got this kit on Amazon. It was pretty cheap, like 75 bucks. I'll put a link down in the description for that. And here is the collector for the header and the hardware that goes with that. And over here, I have a variety of different universal clamps, and I'll put a link to these down in the description as well. And some rubber exhaust insulators that I've collected over the years. And the nice thing about this kit is that one end of all of these pieces is slightly flared, so it slides into the other piece. So there should really be minimal welding involved if you want to use clamps instead. Now, because I have 3-inch drop reliefs and 4-inch lowering blocks on this truck, I highly doubt there will be enough room to go up over the axle. So I probably won't even need to use those. But let's get it up on jack stands and see what kind of room we have to work with. Now I've got the front supported under the frame, but for the rear, it's important to support it under the rear axle because I don't want all the axle and suspension to droop down and make me think I have more room than I really do. And you can see it's already probably 2 to 3 inches below normal just from the slack of the leaves without having all that weight on them. So right now I have a pretty small window to fit this 180 over the axle and next to the shock, between the frame on the other side and that cross member. And if this axle was sitting up about 2 to 3 inches higher, it's not gonna work out. So right away that tells me that I'll have to do a 90-degree, have it poke out the side right about here, or just simply do a dump turn down exhaust. So there is my collector. And I've got these all finger tight for now, and they're all about the same number of threads showing through on all 3. So I can have a little bit of adjustment here. Next, I'm going to take this 45 and slip the flared end on over the collector. A couple mallet taps to get it all the way up there. I'm test fitting different pieces to see what might work best. The biggest obstacle on this 2-wheel drive truck compared to a 4-wheel drive solid axle truck is the torsion bar running right where I need to route the exhaust piping. So the first issue is that this aftermarket header hangs down a lot lower than the factory header. You can see it's almost level with the frame here. And therefore, that is pushing this pipe down way too far, and it's hitting the torsion bar here. Plus, the next obstacle is that this pipe is supposed to come through right here in the cross member. And I don't want to go down under the torsion bar because that's going to be the lowest point in the vehicle and be the most likely to scrape. So the best solution is going to be to get this 45 and cut it and take about from there to there out, and then weld the elbow back on right under this flared section. And that should get this pipe coming through where it should, right here on the factory cross member. Actually, not bad for not having the right tools for the job. Let's go see how it fits. That turned out just about perfect. And the pipe was tucked up within the frame where it wouldn't get scraped up by speed bumps. So the next section is going to be a short section, just long enough to get from the end of this 4-foot pipe here to the start of the muffler. So let's get the muffler in place and figure out where that's going to belong. I've got a couple of bungee cords strung across from the frame over to the drive shaft to help hold the muffler in place. My bungees are a little stretchy, but this will be sitting up a little bit higher, more tucked into the frame like that. And all I need to do now is measure from here to here. Now I'm going to cut this piece a little bit longer than I need because I measured my inner diameter and my outer diameter of my muffler, as well as these, before I ordered the muffler, so I can make sure that the unflared end of this pipe will fit inside the opening of the muffler. And I want to keep the output side of the muffler in mind as well. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have enough room to do the side exhaust like I thought about. So my options are just keep it simple and just leave it open on the back, or I can do a short piece here with just a downturn and just have a dump tube coming out facing down toward the ground. So about 19 inches. 19 inches from the start of the flange. So now the whole exhaust is pretty much mocked up from start to finish. I do need to put a little turn down here at the very end, but we'll do that last. And now all I have to do is hang it up. This factory exhaust bracket bolts to the transmission, but the longer Flowtech header puts the new exhaust too far away to attach it to anything here. Easy fix. I'll just have to modify the bracket. I'll put a link to the header in the description. First, I cleaned it up with the laser cleaner. If you want to learn more about that process, I have a full video that I'll put in the description. After some fine trimming, I got it fitting pretty well in the void of the factory bracket that I cut in two. There were some gaps, but welding will take care of those. I used my little 110 Lincoln to tack weld it together in place on the vehicle. But I'm using the 220 volt MiG 200 by Art Captain to weld the rest, because this bracket is pretty thick. I already cleaned the OEM exhaust bracket, but I gave the new mild steel a quick cleaning with the FLC 200 to remove any contaminants for a fresh, clean surface to weld to. 3 millimeters thick. And this MiG 200 by Art Captain is so easy to use because everything you need to know, all the settings are right here inside the door. So doing steel, and 3mm is the thickness of my metal, and my wire is 0.8mm. So we got 0.8mm, and so my settings are going to be 20 and 11.5. 20 on the power and 11.5 on the wire speed. I absolutely love this welder. It can also run on a 110, 120 outlet, but the power and ease of welding with 220 volts was a game changer for the channel. With the spec chart, there's no guessing which settings to use like I have to do on my Lincoln. I also used the MiG-200 to weld the mini C-notch onto the frame of this truck, and that was 4.5mm thick. The best thing is this 220 volt Art Captain MiG-200 actually costs less than the 110 volt Lincoln did. I'll put a link to it in the description if you're looking for an affordable 220 volt welder for your garage. Then I cleaned up the welds with the laser cleaner and painted it with some self-etching primer, followed by a couple coats of high heat paint so it won't rust. The next day, the paint had cured, and it may not be the prettiest, but it'll definitely get the job done. Next, I got to work on the turn down after the muffler. I'm marking the position of these pieces so I can weld them together. My clamps were a little too small to fit around the inlet and outlet of the muffler, so welding was easier than ordering larger clamps. Most of this custom exhaust was able to be assembled with just clamps, but there is usually going to be at least a little bit of welding involved. A local shop quoted me almost $500 to weld up an axle back exhaust from an Acura Legend, and that was with me supplying the muffler. So a welder pays for itself after a couple DIY jobs. If you don't want to buy a welder, mark your pipes like I did and bring one of your welding buddies a 12-pack. And if you don't know anyone with a welder, well, you're probably hanging out with the wrong crowd. Next, I cleaned the welds with the wire wheel, degreaser, and painted the welds with some high heat paint so they wouldn't rust. And now it was time to install the exhaust for the last time. These clamps with the built-in adjustable hangers were perfect for getting the exhaust positioned exactly where I wanted. And last, I clamped the exhaust to the modified OEM bracket. Here's how the truck sounded before with just the open header. And here's how it sounds with the full exhaust. I adjusted the carb and got the idle smoothed out as well. If you've ever had a shop build a custom exhaust, let us know how much they charged in the comments. I'm curious how much I saved doing this job myself. Next time, I'll show how to replace the broken, discontinued OEM gas pedal with one from a Toyota Hino truck. Thanks for watching.